Сайн байцгаана уу хүн үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр манай дефакто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Сарн дээр хөлөө тавьсан дэлхийн 2 дахь хүн ноён Базз Олдрин оролцож байна.
Базз Олдрин, Америкийн нэгдсэн улсын домогт сансрын нисгэгч. Америкийн нэгдсэн улсын домогт сансрын нисгэгч Базз Олдрин нь 1969 онд Аполло 11 хөлгөөр сансар дээр анх газардсан 3 хүний нэг бөгөөд багийн командлагч Нийл Армстронгийн араас 20 дахь минутын зайтай сансар дээр буусан гэдгээрээ хүн төрөлхтний түүхэнд тодоостоод нэрээ бичүүлжээ. Базз Олдрин бол сарны хөрсөн дээр хөл тавьсан 2 дахь хүн юм. Тэрээр олон жил НАСА-д сансрын нисгэгч инженерээр ажилласны дараа Флоридагийн технологийн их сургуулийн дэргэд сансрын институт байгуулан сансар судлал, ангараг гарагийн судлалын чиглэлээр ажиллаж байгаа ч. Түүний бодит амьдралаас сэдвлэн Холливуудын хамгийн алдартай анимашн кинонуудын нэг болох Тоглоомын түүх киноны гол дүр сансрын зоригт баатар Баззын дүрийг бүтээсэн гэдэг. Тэнгэр өөд тэмүүлж байхад ямар ч мөрөөдөл том биш хэмээн Базз Олдрин хэлсэн байдаг.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to Mongolia.
Well, thank you. Wonderful welcome so far.
So please tell us about this walk, your famous walk. So many people wrote about that. So what was the feeling? Was it easy? Where's the oxygen of this?
Well, we were training for that mission for over 6 months. But we knew that we were going to be part of Apollo for almost a year. So we were thinking about what it would be like. And then one flight went around the moon, orbited, Apollo 8.
How long it took time?
And then the lander was flown first in Earth orbit, and then the lander went to the moon but didn't land. So then we were the next, Apollo 11, with Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and myself. So we were getting used to training on the surface, and it was not a surprise at all. The most important, the most moving moment was when it landed. And the light comes on, and then I said, Neil is over here. I said, contact light. Those were the first words, not the famous ones. The famous words were Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. We were the Eagle,
Yes.
those are called.
When the ship is coming, when the first could not land, the second landed. What was how does it land from the ship which is flying around the moon?
Well, we separated on the far side of the moon, and then came down to lower altitude on the front side.
Okay. Landed there, but the ship was moving?
We started the engine for descent, and it took about 11 minutes of descent.
So once you touch it, once you said these famous words, when you decided to go out, there is no oxygen. So was it difficult to walk? You were almost.
No, we had a big backpack that supplied the oxygen and the cooling water.
Yeah. To walk, what was it?
Well, we had to open the hatch, depressurize the cabin, so it's a vacuum. Then we opened the hatch, and Neil Armstrong backed out, feet first, went down the ladder, and I stood by the window and watched him. And we had a very modern invention called a clothesline with a pulley. And so I sent the camera down to Neil because we needed this rope going down and back because the boxes with the rocks in that we would bring up later were heavy.
Yes.
And we couldn't crawl up the ladder.
When there is a weightless, and still you are taking out certain things, piece with you, so that weight was feeling. Moon, is it weightless?
There is gravity. There's 1/6 gravity.
Of our planet.
On the moon is 1/6
Of our gravity.
of here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that means if it was here, 6 times could be heavier. The rocks
Here,
you were taking,
yes.
yes. So how you could take it out?
Well, the rocks weighed here maybe 40 pounds in 2 boxes.
Here. So they were
Yeah.
6 times less.
6 times less. Yeah.
So then now after you came back, everything started. People was surprising, asking questions. Even you had the punch to one guy who was asking you.
Oh, when we came back to Earth.
Yes. What kind of this controversial attack to you gives you feeling today?
Well, it's many years,
Yes,
48 years
Yes.
ago. And many people are not living anymore, but I'm very strong. And I'm very active in the future. When I came back from the moon, still in NASA, I was waiting for my children to get out of school. Well, we made a long trip around the world, meeting different countries and kings and queens, and, dictators.
So what was the questions they have asked most about you from the moon that you think the people, human being, is most curious about?
Well, it's a natural question to ask what did it feel like, okay? Feeling is not really something, I mean, you walk around, but you don't feel things. You're light and you have a big helmet and a backpack. So now in the head, you think. And when I was down on the surface, just a minute or two, there were 2 words that I hadn't thought before, but they described the magnificence of human beings like Neil Armstrong and myself being on the moon. And yet what we looked at was so lifeless. Nothing growing, no air, no clouds, the sky is black. The sun is very bright behind us. And we could very clearly see the horizon and little craters. Nothing like anything here on Earth. Even Mongolia, I'm sure.
All right. Okay. Well,
So I said the second word was desolation. Magnificent desolation, because there was just no life. And it still is not a good place to live.
my last question.
You have to need a lot of things to help to be able to live there.
But my last question is about this ongoing talk to exploit moon, to take minerals, all these conversations. What is your position on that? Is it possible? Is it good? It is feasible?
Well, we're human beings. We're curious, and we want to explore. And so I think this is a new horizon. Well, a horizon, but this is a new opportunity of going out in the universe.
So we should go.
Yes.
And we should take
We will-
minerals.
Bring back
Minerals,
minerals.
Is there sense? That is,
Well, there's a lot of science, And the most important substance initially is ice, water, because we can drink the water, but it is hydrogen and oxygen, and that's rocket fuel, and then we can refuel the landers to go up and down and learn how to refuel. So at Mars, there's a lot of ice, so we can have reusable landers, and we can refuel the rockets that leave around Earth and go to Mars. So water is the initial most valuable. There probably isn't anything that you could bring back to Earth unless it's a quantity, but there isn't any small diamonds or gold, but it would be because, it came from there.
Okay.
It came from the moon, it came from Mars. But the cost of going there to get it and bring it back is very, very high.
All right. Bazz, thank you very much for coming to this
Very
program.
welcome.
And for nice words to our people, Mongolians. And I know you're busy with now another meeting. Thank you very much again.
Well, thank you. Little details to get a big show going, and I feel so welcome here in Mongolia, and thank you so much. Of the three pioneers, I am afraid that the first, Tsiolkovsky, was just too old for me. But I did meet Herman Oberth at a birthday party when he was 90 years old. For Robert Goddard, the American, he was my father's physics professor in college. When my father finished MIT, he went to the Philippines and he met my mother, and her name was Marion Moon. So perhaps I had my destiny already set for me. I feel that I have been so lucky in my life to have been, my mother was born the year that the Wright brothers flew. My father participated in World War II as an Air Force colonel when he left. And of course, I flew airplanes, and I was in the Korean War for the last part and destroyed 2 enemy aircraft. I would have been in the Vietnam conflict, but instead, space beckoned, and I went to MIT and then was selected as an astronaut in 1963. The Mercury program with 1 astronaut was over by that time. My very good friend, Ed White, was the first American to float in space in 1964 in the second Gemini spacecraft with 2 people in it. Ed White was a very close friend of mine. He was 1 year behind at the military academy at West Point, he was very instrumental in my getting into a very spirited fighter squadron. That was a long time ago, 1956 to 59, and we had a wonderful squadron commander. I invited them for a reunion in Florida, where I live now. He is 96 years old, but very, very spirited. My first space flight was the last flight of the two-man Gemini flight, Gemini 12, and I flew with Jim Lovell. We did several rendezvous, and of course I had originated procedures for rendezvous at MIT, and I was called Dr. Rendezvous. Again, I was very fortunate because I was in the right place at the right time, and Neil Armstrong and I were on the backup crew for the first flight that orbited the moon, Apollo 8. And so, lucky again, Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin were given the great honor to be the first to attempt a landing on the moon. And of course, we were lucky again. No, we were very skillful and landed on the moon. I think that the words that were left on the moon with the lander summarized very completely what Apollo was all about. And it said, "We came in peace for all mankind." My children, Andy, finally got out of school, so I went to my assignment, not at the Air Force Academy, I'd been there, but I was commander of the test pilot school, which was strange because I had never gone through the test pilot school. I began to look at new things to do in space, not just rendezvous. I know how to do that. I taught the rest of them. But could we go to the moon and come back to Earth, go back out again and back again? Yes, I discovered that we could do that. But NASA was not impressed. So a very great leader who was the leader of NASA when we went to the moon said to me, "Don't worry, why don't you use gravity assist and look at Earth and Mars?" He said, "Why don't you use the gravity assist between Earth and the moon and use it between Earth and Mars?" And that was in 1985, 32 years ago, something like that. And I've been working on cycling orbits to Mars ever since then. And now my program for the future is called Cycling Pathways to Occupy Mars. And the pathway is a cycler going around the Earth. A cycler that goes from the Earth around the moon and back and out and back. It's a Earth-Moon cycler. Then a cycler that goes around the moon and controls many activities on the moon, where I am strongly suggesting that we have a global organization called an Earth, Moon, Mars coalition of the nations that now are capable of going to the moon and beyond, and that's the United States. NASA will bring together the European Space Agency, the Roscosmos, the Russians, the JAXA, the Japanese, and the Chinese, and those 5 nations will begin to execute from Earth orbit activities on the moon and prepare very carefully to be able to go to Mars much easier. Going to the moon allows building partners. Very important to build partnership between these 5 nations, but more nations will come and join us. The last book that I wrote of 9 or 10 is called No Dream is Too High, and I will add to that, no dream is too high for those with their eyes in the sky. Thank you. Very short time here, but it's very nice. Thank you.